What's up, everybody? This is Nathan Rossi with Philly Insider Podcast, coming at you with Seth Fisher and Hunter Doyle for tonight's live. And boy, do we got some stuff to talk about tonight. We had some breaking news. James Harden is joining the Sixers as of 2 hours before the trade deadline. We were sweating it out. But James Harden is a Sixer. Ben Simmons is no longer a Sixer, and that is great news. In my opinion, I really think that it makes the Sixers competitors to win a championship this year. I think that if the Sixers don't make the NBA championship, that's a huge disappointment to me. I think they've got the best duo in the league with Harden and Embiid. There's some people who think otherwise, but it's obviously going to help the Sixers compete for a title this year. So, Seth, I'll ask you, who do you think won this trade? Was it Brooklyn or was it us?
Well, first of all, let's have the viewers check on Ian at some point.
Ian's not our local Ben Simmons fan.
Yeah, Ian, huge Ben Simmons guy. Listen, I'm excited. It's always awesome to have a top tier player join your team, and we got that in James Harden. Tough to say where this is going to go. It's kind of a wait and see. We gave up a lot to get him. I know original reports brought up that the Nets wanted Matisse or Maxey, and so I'm glad we didn't do that. But time will tell. Like Nate said, it's championship or bust type of mode right here. A second round playoff exit will not make this a happy city. That will not suffice this year. So it's a wait and see. We'll see what happens. I'm excited to see how him and Embiid play together.
Yeah, absolutely. Hunter, did the Sixers give up too much to get Harden?
No shot. I don't really know where this whole overpay thing is coming from. Now, if we had given up Thibault or Maxey, which especially Maxey, Maxey was never on the table for me. Maybe I can understand, but look, Drummond was on an expiring contract. He was not going to re-sign most likely in the offseason. Curry, he's a really, really good role player, but offered you nothing on defense. Love Seth Curry, but it kind of evened out his value because of his defensive deficiencies. And Ben wasn't playing. So we really didn't give up all that much, in my opinion. Now, do Curry and Drummond leave some holes? Yeah, you need to look at the buyout market and fill those. And in the offseason, you also need to find some role players who can fit those spots. But when you're getting a player like James Harden, when months ago we were hollering for Daryl Morey to take pretty much any decent offer on the table for Ben Simmons, it pretty much goes out the window, in my opinion. So I'm ecstatic that we got this. I don't think we overpaid at all.
Yeah, absolutely. There were discussions that potentially Matisse Thybulle was on the table. And I think a lot of Sixers fans felt like that would be giving up too much. And I think the big thing here is that the Sixers get that top 15 guy, right? Honestly, I think he has potential to be a top 5 guy in the league still, when he's not checked out. And we'll definitely get into that dynamic that was in Brooklyn at some point tonight and kind of talk about that and kind of talk about whether this kind of worries you, kind of this almost a Ben Simmons attitude, maybe not as severe that James Harden had in Brooklyn, but we'll get to that. I think when you have a chance to get one of those top 15, top 10 type of guys, especially when you've got somebody with Joel Embiid, who is, the MVP this year, you've got to do it because that's what's getting you to a championship in this league. It's not role players like Seth Curry or Andre Drummond, despite the fact that they are nice pieces, they're nice role players. What's getting you to a championship in this league in 2022 is having that big duo. All of the good teams had it, right? That's just the truth. All of the good teams in the NBA right now have that duo. The Sixers didn't until we got James Harden. So we can start getting some callers in here if we have any up at the moment. We're going to continue to talk.
Drop the link in the chat right now.
There we go. So we're getting that link in the chat. You can call in if you would like. Talk with us live on air. We're going to be talking Harden and Sixers for a little bit here. Coming up, we've also got some rumors that Russell Wilson could potentially be an Eagle next season. Albert Breer said that he believes Russell Wilson will be moved in the offseason, and he thinks the Eagles are the most likely suitors. To me, kind of makes sense just because the Eagles have all that draft capital. If he is going to get moved, that's a decently likely place. And so, we'll see. We'll see. But we're going to keep going with Harden and the Sixers. And, I think a lot of us Sixers fans are super excited. So if we've got our first caller queued up, we can do that. We can get him in here. So John Zoo is with us here. He is a long-time supporter. And we've got to ask, are the Sixers contenders with James Harden?
Oh, well, I don't know. I don't follow basketball very much, but all I know is I wanted my Sonics to get him, and they didn't. So that's an L for Seattle anyway.
So, how about this? We know that you're a Seahawks fan, so we'll talk Russ and we'll talk the Eagles, right? Do you think there's any way that Seattle trades their standout, their star Super Bowl winning quarterback to the Eagles, even for all 3 first-round draft picks?
That's what I think at the very least has to be offered for Russ. All right. The thing about John Schneider is that he's very much connected to Pete Carroll and supposedly to the rest of the organization as well, right? And the thing is about Pete Carroll is he's very stuck in his ways, right? Pete Carroll is he's admitted even on press conferences that the only reason he's made it this far is because Russell Wilson has been carrying him. And while we could get into a discussion of how Pete Carroll should have been fired in the offseason, at least we fired Ken Norton Jr. Crab rave.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think, in my opinion, I'm a Hurts guy, right? But I think you have to realize that Russell Wilson is a massive upgrade over Jalen Hurts. There are definitely some Philadelphia sports fans in general who get a little bit too attached to some of our players and kind of overrate them a little bit. I think you kind of saw that in the Harden situation where people were getting a little bit too attached to some of our role players. So there will be people who will say, no, we need Hurts. But Russell Wilson is the better player. That's just the truth. The Sixers, sorry, not the Sixers. The Eagles would have to give up a lot. Really a ton in order to get Russ. So, Hunter, what's your take on kind of these rumors? What do you think the probability is that we get Russ?
Yeah, I think it's decent. Again, with the draft capital we have, we're going to be tied to a lot of these big name quarterbacks and players in general that are going to become available. Now, as far as Russ goes, I really like Russ. I think he's, again, like you said, phenomenal. He's an upgrade over Jalen Hurts. He's had 1 losing season. I think he's had 2 seasons where he hasn't reached double-digit wins in his career. So you're going to contend, and you're also probably going to attract a couple offensive weapons to come to your team as well, because that's just the type of quarterback that Russell is. And I will say, you're still going to have a quarterback that's going to run into sacks a couple times here and there, who, credit to Rich Madrid, who we had on week 2 for the Niners preview. He keeps up with the NFC West. He's going to struggle when they roll the 2 high, is what he said. And there's times where he stares down receivers and just doesn't pull the trigger. So those 3 things kind of sounds like another quarterback who is in midnight green right now. I'm not comparing the 2. Russell Wilson is much better, much more advanced in his career. But I think that Jalen and him do share some similarities. I think my point being, I would take Russell. It just has to be for the right price. And I don't think Howie's not someone who usually gets fleeced via trade. I don't think he's going to give up more than he has to. Howie's problem is more so the draft. So, and honestly, him not taking those picks might be something we might be thankful for down the road, depending on who he might have picked. So I would take Russ. It's just got to be for the right price.
Yeah. Yeah. And Seth, if you're the Eagles, would you give up 3 first-round draft picks or maybe 2? Like, what are you willing to give up if you're Howie?
I'm willing to give up the 3. I think, like Hunter said, with Howie's previous draft picks, we could look back and be like, oh, we could have got Russ for 3 first-round draft picks. Instead, we're stuck with X, Y, and Z at linebacker, safety,
the LVP, Jalen Reagor.
Yep. Yeah.
We'll probably draft a receiver and it'll turn out horribly. But yeah, like John said, I think that's the least the Seahawks will take, and I don't see how we getting fleeced. I think the chances of us getting Russell in midnight green is slim, but I'd be all for it. I'd love to see him in an Eagles uniform.
Yeah, absolutely, John. If you had Hertz coming back to Seattle and 3 first-round draft picks, we'll put it all out there. We'll give you everything. 3 first-round draft picks and Jalen Hurts. Are you happy with that return or no?
I don't know. Depends on how John Schneider uses the draft picks. The thing about John Schneider is that he's Howie Roseman with a star quarterback. Okay, has messed up the past couple of drafts. All right. Case in point, we had 3 draft picks last season. Right, and and our first round pick this year has already gone to the Jets for Blitz Boy. All right. Now,
Yeah, that was a bad deal. That was not a good deal at all.
No.
yeah. But like, if so, suppose, like, what? Supposedly, John Schneider is on the hot seat with the organization. I would hope so personally, because then he won't, mess up future drafts. But then, if all of the draft picks are like mid, or if he trades down, which he usually does, to get some like second, third round guys, and those guys are also okay, like acceptable, then maybe I'd be okay with it. Depends on how on what happens in the future with the picks.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, thanks for tuning in tonight, man. Thanks for giving us a call. We always enjoy having you on. You're, just again a longtime supporter of this channel, and so thanks for joining us tonight. So we're gonna pivot now back to the Sixers and Harden and Joel. So Hunter, do you think that Harden and Joel can figure this thing out? Are they gonna be compatible?
Absolutely. Look, I don't think Harden has played with a big man like Joel at any point in his career. I think the closest is probably Capella, if I'm
Yeah.
remembering correctly.
And there's no
That's
comparison. Yeah.
It's not even close. I mean, we saw what Joel did to Capella in that series last year. People can say what they want. Joel didn't lose us that series at all. He was outstanding on a torn meniscus. So he bullied Capella. And yeah, I think the pick and roll, we talked about that a few nights ago. We've talked about that a number of times now. That's going to be beautiful. And it takes me back to so many times where Joel's in the post, he gets doubled, kicks it out, and then the guys on the perimeter don't know what to do, or they pass out of an open shot. And Harden's not going to do that, because if you double up on Joel and Harden's right there sitting on the perimeter, good luck. I mean, he's going to be able to knock down some shots. Now, he will have his off nights from, here and there, but I just think the spacing he's going to create and just having a big man like Joel to dominate the post, I think it's really going to cause fits for defenses.
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this year he's averaging 20, 11, and 8, I think. And what we forget about Harden a lot of times is that he is an elite distributor. So not only do you have that passing ability, but you also just have the fact that he at times is going to command a double team, right? At times he's going to get hot and he's really going to draw the defense. So I've said this a couple times now in our live when this broke, but you're not going to have to see Joel, Euro stepping through 4 defenders anymore. You're not going to see when it gets down to the end of the game where, it's the ball's in Joel's hands and 5 defenders have their eyes on him, right? Because now you've got this other threat. So Seth, do you think that they're going to be able to figure this out in time to really get rolling and kind of open up the offense?
I do, and I'm really looking forward to that pick and roll. That's going to look pretty. As far as you guys hit the nail on the head with, all of James Harden's attributes, as far as distributing, scoring, I think it opens things up for Tobias as well. I think that's somebody we're not going to talk about a lot until we see him with more of a chance to score with defenders' eyes on Embiid and Harden. I'm really looking forward to that. My one concern, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts, is on the defensive side of the floor, where Seth Curry and, the starting 5 really developed the chemistry out there. And I loved watching them play defense. And, that's obviously a flaw in Harden's game and a criticism. What do you think we're going to see on the defensive side of the floor?
Rossi?
Yeah, I think if you look at the starting lineup, there's not really much difference but with Seth's defense and then Harden's defense, right? So you're not really losing much defensively because Seth at times has shown that he's been a defensive liability, really, and really just a kind of a weak link defensively. So I'm not too concerned about the starting lineup. Where I am concerned is with Drummond. We've kind of seen it at times where Joel comes off the floor, and I mean the Sixers just really struggle because they don't have that quality backup center. And Drummond really did provide that this year. He provided that quality backup center role. And at the same time, the Sixers have struggled as a rebounding team this year. And Drummond is, historically one of the best rebounders in the NBA's history. So I think defensively and rebounding, it definitely hurts you a little bit. But at the same time, just the offensive juggernaut that this move makes you, I think that it almost doesn't matter because you can fill that a little bit more easily, right? You can fill that with role players. When you can get a guy of Harden's quality, you got to go out and do it because you can get those role players to complement the team later, right? And it's going to take some time for this team to, develop chemistry, like you said, on the defensive end of the floor. And we've already talked about the fact that it's going to take time to, figure out how this is going to work with Joel and Harden on the offensive, side of the ball. But at the same time, everything in the East is really close right now. So the Sixers have that time and they kind of have that margin of error to figure that out.
Yeah, I really agree with you, Nate. You make some really good points. And I just think keeping Thibault, I think, is huge in that aspect because, look, Danny, I think he's still a solid defender, but you can definitely tell his age is starting to affect him a little bit on that side of the ball. And like you said, Harden, Seth, one of his criticisms is his defense. And, mostly from an effort standpoint, too, to be honest. So I'm hoping that, I don't want to say I want Danny or Thibault to start. I'm going to leave that up to the coaching staff. We'll kind of see how that plays out with the lineup we have because I don't really know which one really fits better. But I do think that if you have Thibault out there, it'll hopefully offset some of that lack of effort and just having someone who's a defensive prowess in the lineup, specifically in transition defense. I think it'll be huge.
You guys are talking me into this, man. I'm getting excited.
Yeah, Seth. So what do you think are really our chances to, get to the NBA championship?
It's a 4-team conference, the way you look at it. I think watching that Bucks Suns game, I like the way we match up against the Suns a lot better than the Bucks. I know Embiid versus Ayton, that would be a fun matchup to watch, but the Bucks got eaten alive by him and their lack of prowess with the big man we have with Joel Embiid. But you got to beat the East first. I think our chances are better. It's a tight race, man. I'm looking forward to seeing how our team gels together. I think Sixers and Nets have a tough road as far as building chemistry is concerned, and getting Durant on the floor healthy is a big hurdle for the Nets right now. I think both teams benefit from the trade. It's just going to come down to, I think, who connects better and, what Ben Simmons shows up in Brooklyn.
Yeah, and we've got Dan joining us now. Dan, we got to ask you, man, how you feeling about this trade? Harden to Philly, Ben is gone. What are you feeling?
Dude, I think people knew I was a little bit hesitant at first, but it happened. So now I'm super excited. This is probably best case scenario, as you guys have already said. Like, keeping the young talent, having Harden, a dynamic scorer, Embiid doesn't have to do it alone anymore. And just being able to get more opportunities for Maxey to develop, for Toby to actually be a third option to be able to score. I'm excited. I'm truly excited for this team right now, and I can't wait to see what happens. For the other side, the Nets, they're just going to have to deal with that. I don't know. good luck over there. I don't know what they're going to do, so good luck to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got Sterner waiting in the wings, our next caller, so we can get him queued up here. Sterner, I'm going to let Hunter take this one. You guys got a little bit of rapport, so Hunter, go ahead.
Sterner, first off, third week in a row calling in. We appreciate you a ton, man. You're a recent subscriber to the channel, but a very loyal subscriber. So we appreciate you a ton. And yeah, what do you want to talk about first? You want to go Sixers? I know you were in our live streams a little bit ago. Or do you want to go Russ and the Eagles?
First, I want to talk about the Sixers here, really, with this trade.
Yeah, go off, sound off on them.
So I was I was really upset when I first heard this trade happen. As I'm pretty sure you saw in the Facebook group, but I actually was looking at things, and like you guys were saying, Seth's defense does compare um Harden's. Like they're pretty much equal in that. And then like Andre Drummond, I didn't really like. I could have worried less about him. And Simmons, we all know that he's probably not going to do much in Brooklyn. Those 2 first-round picks, that might have been a little much. I don't really care about those picks, but it's whatever Harden and Millsap can help us do. And I feel like Harden and Millsap can help us get forward toward the our chances of making the finals and winning the finals. But I think both of these teams really they dealed out pretty good. We got Harden, we got Millsap. Millsap could be a great bench player. Harden could be a great starter. And actually, right now the Sixers are on playing OKC right now. Neither Harden or Millsap's playing tonight. Millsap might be playing tonight, but Harden is not playing for the next 2 games. He'll be back on Monday, from what I know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, correct. So I want to ask you too. You talked a little bit about the Nets and how far the Sixers will go. First, 2-part question: what are the chances the Sixers and Nets meet in a playoff series? It's part 1, and 2. How much do you think this trade elevates both teams? Where do you see both teams kind of ending up at the end of the year?
So if I'm looking at it, I was looking at a press conference earlier. I was looking at a press conference that the owner of the Nets had. Well, they're not going to play him they're not going to play Simmons for a little while because where he is physically and mentally. But I think if Simmons does get in there, he could help them with rebounding, the thing where they struggled a lot of this season. And I feel like Brooklyn will be in one of the playing games. If they don't step up here soon, they have to step up now, or they're in the playing games. Which we're seeing the Knicks, the Raptors, and Hornets. We're seeing Celtics there. There's a few really good teams. This Eastern Conference, really good conference. These are really good teams, all going at it. I mean, right now, the Heat are starting to pull away, but we all know they pull away and then they go on their downhill slant. So they're
not elite either. The Heat are not an elite team.
No, they're not. They're not. I never agreed with anybody that said that they're elite. I laugh in their face.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're saying they're not an elite team. They'll eventually fall off. They're going to fall off, and everybody's going to be coming toward them. But where I see the Sixers ending up, the Sixers and the Nets will meet for sure in the playoffs. It will happen at least. It will happen, and we all know. I have it marked on my calendar already. March 10th, we play the Nets at home, I think, and I'd really love to go to that game to see the fans' initial reaction. But I'm gonna be watching it from home. But yeah, that's gonna be a great return home for Ben Simmons.
Mm.
No, I think tickets are $180 when I checked this morning. That's the cheapest. It's probably into the 200s right now, which is nuts because for game 2 of the series against the Hawks, we were getting tickets for $65. So that tells you how badly Ben Simmons is going to be received. I honestly don't even expect him to play in that game. I just mentally don't think he can do it.
He's going to
Yeah,
What'd you say,
I
Seth?
think he's gonna.
take Simmons is going to take a mental health day that game.
Yeah.
He'll be in LA.
I'm not sure. I think he's just scared of the Sixers crowd because he knows that we're gonna react in some crazy manner toward him for not playing a while long. And it could be things like throwing stuff at him. It could be as simple as trash talk, but you just never know with Philadelphia sports fans. Like we saw what happened our whole Super Bowl run with egging Minnesota Vikings fans, and yeah.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right on that, Sterner. I mean, if they dumped popcorn on Russell Westbrook, I mean, I can't imagine what's going to happen on the Ben Simmons return date. So, Dan, I want to turn it to you real quick. I mean, what do you think the chances are that the Sixers and Nets meet in the playoffs, and what do you think that's going to look like?
I mean, it is very possible. I mean, thinking about if KD actually, comes back from injury and stays healthy, the team is going to go if KD's there. And then who knows about this thing with Kyrie only playing in away games and things like that. And to be honest with you, if Simmons does come back, I think he is fit for the Nets. In the case that, defensively they need a guy, and that is their guy. Rebounding, obviously something that they need as well. Simmons can do that. And even in transition, like I was just saying in the chat, was like he can push it up the floor and open up transition threes, which is very important for that Nets team. So just opening up shots for them would be very important to them. So it'd be interesting to see it in playoffs because the Nets could be at a massive disadvantage if this Kyrie only playing at away games is in factor at that point.
And KD's not healthy. There's no timetable for his return.
Exactly. So this team, there is a possibility they won't make playoffs, but if they do, and we end up playing them, I personally think we have them outmatched. Like there's just I don't think there's a chance that they could beat us. There's just the starting lineups just don't match up well at all. I think we are the more skilled team, and as of right now, the team with a better team chemistry. So we're just looking like a better team overall right now, even without Harden in the lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll turn it to Seth and Rossi. I just want to ask you guys, do you guys have any other questions kind of on Sixers? Anything you want to ask before we let Sterner go here?
I'm good.
Yeah, Sterner, are you at all worried about kind of this attitude that James Harden has where he essentially forced his way out of 2 teams in a row? Are you kind of worried about that at all?
No, because he's been pretty over the past few years. He's been wanting to come to Philly, so I think it will be a while before he wants his way out. I mean, we're a championship caliber team. We've always been a championship caliber team, but we always find a way to choke. It happened last year against Atlanta, but I think we got potential these next few years. Also, getting Shake back today helps us there too.
Definitely. Well, Sterner, anything you wanted to say on Russ and the Eagles before we let you go?
Yeah. So I've actually been talking a lot about Russell Wilson here lately. Just some local friends. There's no legitimate way. It's a 15% chance for me. But why did he throw a fit in Seattle? Well, it was his offensive line. He threw a fit because of his offensive line. Well, Brandon Brooks just retired. Jason Kelsey and Lane Johnson, they're getting pretty old too, and they were talking about retiring. So if we don't have those 2 guys to help on the offensive line, I don't know if we're going to get Russ, because Russ did throw a fit in Seattle because he was getting sacked too much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a valid point. Hopefully we can rely on the guy Jeff Stoutland over there to develop the next core. So Sterner, thank you for calling in, man. We're gonna take our next caller, but we appreciate your loyalty to the channel and being here every Friday night with us. Appreciate you, man.
All right, no problem. See you guys.
Peace.
Thanks, Sterner. Have a good one. Yeah. So I'm thinking about Harden right now. I'm kind of thinking about this attitude. And I think that people are really discounting the fact that Harden is in probably the most dysfunctional organization and on the most dysfunctional team with one of the most dysfunctional players in the league, right? I've been hearing some situations that he's been in with Kyrie Irving. And like, so for example, when Kyrie went back to Cleveland, he was lighting incense in the locker room, uh, because obviously, he played in Cleveland and he was trying to, he's apparently exercise his demons. And James Harden was just kind of sitting there like, dude, are you kidding me? Is this really happening? So you have that. You have Kyrie Irving only playing, road games. You've got KD who's not, really healthy. You've got KD who really, it's hard for him to get along with other stars. I think. I don't know. I don't know if you caught the draft the other night. I think it was
I
actually
was just
last
going to
night.
ask about that. Yeah.
I think KD has to be the most awkward, most vanilla, most cardboard, but also most like irritated person that like I've ever seen. And so if I'm Harden and I've got KD on one side, who's just this vanilla, like cardboard, always seemingly upset and ticked off, then you've got Kyrie on the other end, burning incense in the locker room and flat earther and only playing half the games. I would want out of there too. Like honestly, I would want out of there too. And I think Sterner made a really good point. Harden has wanted to come to the Sixers since he was in Houston. And I think Harden understands that really you can't want out of two teams in a row. And we got that report, right, that he didn't really want to come public like that. And yes, Kyrie is absolutely a locker room cancer. So, Dan, are you at all really concerned? I'll ask you the same question that I asked Sterner. Are you all concerned about that attitude, or do you think that it's kind of understandable?
Man, it's hard. It's hard to say. Like at a point, you can see like he has been part of some dysfunctional places, and just the teams that he's been at, there just hasn't been, general managers haven't adjusted to what maybe he wanted or he needed, because every team he's been at, like he's almost been the focal point, especially the Rockets. He was the focal point of the offense and of the team. And then even the Nets, KD's going to be focal point, but Harden's your second guy and probably one of the more important pieces there. So I can understand if he's looking at it from that level where there's the GM's not making moves, or, the people in power aren't just getting along with him. Even the players, like you said, there are many different things going on there. But at the same time, I mean, it does it happened in Houston and in Brooklyn. So you do see where there could have been an attitude where he's like, man, these places just aren't for me. These players aren't for me. So, he can be picky, and that's kind of the way I'm viewing it. And if he's picky and he wants to be here, he ended here. He ended up here. So this is where he's supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Seth, who are you siding with here? Do you think it was understandable for Harden to want out because just this Nets organization, more the team than anything, is just ridiculous and dysfunctional? Or do you think, you're kind of concerned about that? And, we haven't even talked about the fact that Harden might be a little bit out of shape, right? He might be a little bit overweight. We haven't talked about the fact that, he might not be the hardest worker. So are you at all concerned about that, Seth?
I'm not. To you guys' points, that Brooklyn Nets locker room was a mess from the start. As far as, when you got star power with KD, Kyrie, and Harden on the same team, I can't speak for you guys, but I know for myself, I was like, I don't think this is going to work. We've seen it time and time again. I think in most organizations, it just doesn't work because all those guys are so good. For any other team, they would have the ball for the majority of the time. Sometimes we're seeing it in LA right now. It does not work with Russ, Anthony Davis, and LeBron. It didn't work in Brooklyn. Part of that has to do with them staying healthy. I just think there was a lot of discontent in that locker room for who's getting the ball in big situations. And, I don't think there's any arguing amongst us that KD, when healthy, is the best out of those three. But coming to Philly, I think we have a mature Joel Embiid, number one center in the league. I think him and Harden have always gotten along. To your guys' point, he's wanted to be here for years now, and he is here. I understand the concerns with his work ethic and such, but if there's ever a time where he gets it together, I think it would be with our team. He's in the twilight prime of his career, I'll call it, where he's getting a little older, and I think his window for a championship's running out. I don't think he'll have a better chance to win one than with us. So
Yeah, he absolutely wants a ring. That's for sure. I think that's why he feels almost desperate for this move to have happened. I think that's why he was really. I can't remember who had the report, but I think it was Windhorst of ESPN said he is screaming to get out of Brooklyn because he knows he's getting up there in age. He knows that he's probably not in his prime anymore. And he knows that his window to win a ring is closing. And another thing that I think is we've seen the ugly side of having 3 superstars on the team, right? We saw the ugly side of that with the Nets. But we also saw the ugly side of having only 1 superstar. Because we've seen what's been happening to Joel the last few years since Jimmy Butler's been gone. And Joel really wasn't the player that he is now when Jimmy Butler was here in Philadelphia, right? And so we kind of see the ugly side of both of those. And anybody who would point to, for example, Golden State, I think that's really a different dynamic, especially with Clay being more of a catch and shoot guy who really just hardly even handles the ball. So I think that was a way different dynamic in Golden State, and that's kind of why it worked. But Hunter, I'll ask you the same question. Are you at all concerned, or do you think that Harden is going to fit in?
I think he'll fit in. Like you guys said, I mean, pretty much agree with all the points you said. The Brooklyn locker room was a complete mess. Harden has wanted to be here for quite some time now. So, and look, I mean, with Daryl Morey as his GM, I think those two have, I think it was Michael Levin said he's never seen a player and GM kind of have the rapport that they do. Or maybe it was Philly Take with RB and some of them talking about that last night. But I mean, I think it really is rare to have that. And to your guys' point on like the 3 stars they had in Golden State fit with each other so well because you have Seth, who's the ball handler, who can kind of do everything. And then you have Clay, who's kind of that catch and shoot guy, but can shoot off the dribble. And then you had KD, who just kind of did his own thing every so often, but they all kind of meshed together in terms of a fit, at least. I don't have in-depth details on why that worked, but when you went with Brooklyn, it's 3 guys who need the ball in their hand and want to be the ball handler. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll queue up our next caller now. Yeah, it's going to be a different dynamic having only 2 of those ball dominant guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Philly Sports Talk Podcast, you are on live with us right now.
What's good, guys?
Hey, thank you for hopping on. We appreciate you, man. First off, I do want to ask you about this comment that Troy made. I have personally not been a huge Doc fan during his time here. I was before the playoffs last year. This year, I have not been. And I kind of wouldn't be surprised if part of this was just him kind of inflating his ego a little bit. So I'll ask you what you think of this, and also on that, how you think Doc is going to manage this team now that there's a little bit less depth, but also a new star involved in the mix.
To really answer that, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to describe because, like you said, like I had the same sentiments as you, Hunter. Doc is a 50-50 kind of coach. It's like on good nights, like you can like him, but then again, when he shits the bed, it's like it's a whole different. We have a whole different reaction. So I mean, I can see where Troy wants to go with that. The fact that Harden's here and what if Doc can manage as well, the fact that we have him as the 2 guard, I think number 1 is that's going to really help Joel Embiid out, kind of take the load management off, because. Like you said, the last time, because like think about the when we had Jimmy Butler, obviously Joel Embiid's not the player that he once was, or the MVP dominant kind of player that he was, but Jimmy Butler was one of those guys that's like it helped, facilitate the basketball and get that load management off of Joel Embiid's shoulders. And something with like Harden. And I know a lot of people don't like it. I know I like it because if you looked at the package, and I looked at it when I dropped the video about it too, it's just like that's the best thing we could get at this point. It's like there's really nothing else we can do. And and the fact that we still kept Tyrese, we still kept Matisse Thybulle, which thank God we did, because if that was the case, I'm going to be really pissed off if that had happened. But luckily that didn't happen. Thank God we got rid of Mr. 2-5, but don't be surprised if we're going to be throwing trash at him. So I mean, or the Sixers probably give him a trash can or something like that. So. But all in all, I mean, I thought it was a fair trade from both sides, because obviously, and yeah, and the reason I think too, like the Brooklyn Nets, I know they're going to have a disadvantage because you got one guy that can't shoot, and you got guys like Blake Griffin, who's, from my understanding, he's kind of washed. Patty Mills hasn't really been the same, and like you said, Kyrie can't. The fact that who forget. I'll say this too, like, who the hell freaking lights incense in the goddamn locker room? That's the most dumbest shit that I've ever heard.
It's naughty. It's really naughty.
Because it reminds me of that scene from the Major League.
Yeah,
the guy was doing,
Jobu.
Yeah, they're doing the fucking voodoo
I know,
ritual.
Seth, you're a big Major League fan, right?
Huge.
Yeah, I think overall, I think it's really good. This really, I think it's going to really. I feel like. I don't feel like we're done yet. Try to get more pieces, but James Harden, and it's crazy to think. I'm looking back at it, said, what could have we looked like if we actually drafted James Harden? Like, what could have what things could have turned out differently? But hey, look, we got him at the Seth said, at the twilight prime of his career. If he plays like his old self, look out, because with him and Joel Embiid, guys can average almost 30 points. Shit, we're gonna be putting on like points like it's nobody's business. And the fact that what I saw the projected starting 5 with having Matisse in there, it's like I really do like that starting 5 with Matisse in there, because like if you could just have old guys that can shoot and then have a good decent perimeter defender, and not say decent, but I mean great perimeter defender Matisse, I think that can really kind of help. I think help the Sixers out going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of want to touch on, so we touched on Harden and Embiid a lot. This comment right here with the big three. What kind of role do you see Tobias Harris taking on right now? I know on the pod, Rossi has talked about he could be a phenomenal number 4 if Maxi's kind of more of that 3 guy, which Maxi has played off ball before. But what do you kind of think about Maxi and Harris and their fit, and what kind of roles they'll be asked to step into now with Embiid and Harden as kind of your 1 and 2 guys?
Okay. For me, I feel like Maxi's your best 3. I say, and I'm actually really liking Harris. Well, even though Tobias Harris is 50-50 with me, but I feel like Tobias is the best 4th option we have. So I think he should be the 4th, and you have Tyrese Maxey off for the 3. But then again, I wouldn't mind having Tobias Harris as a 3. So you can probably mix and match the 2 of them, because they both played pretty well off ball. So I mean, it's really kind of tough to. It's like basically. It's hard to it's like you can, like I said, you can mix and match it, and I don't think it's really going to be that much of a difference. But I think the way that Tyrese Maxey has come along with, especially with his jump shot, I wouldn't be surprised if they actually made him the primary 3rd option on this roster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to turn to Seth. I want to turn to you before we come back around and kind of go around the room right now. This next comment, we've talked about Ben Simmons' fit in Brooklyn a little bit. So talking about, Drew mentions Ben Simmons at the 5 here, or, maybe he plays the 4, whatever it may be. We kind of saw Ben play the dunker spot in the Sixers offense with Joel and everyone, and it was just kind of awkward. Do you guys, especially you, Seth, I want to ask you first, do you see that kind of changing? What do you think Ben's role will kind of be in that offense? Is there any chance he's kind of move around a little bit more, not just kind of sit there in the dunker spot, or do you think he's just kind of going to be a non-factor in that role like he was in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I think Simmons is too much of a diva to play a 4 or 5. I think he'll be a great distributor in Brooklyn. It's all jokes right now, but if it came down to playing him in a playoff series, Sixers are going to have to do their homework. We know Ben well, but I certainly don't underestimate him. I think he'll be a great fit in Brooklyn.
Dan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you've kind of already heard my thoughts, but I think Ben will be a good fit for the Nets, especially if he's actually worked on his game while he's been taking this mental break. If he's been working on a shot like they say every single summer, this he could be very good. I basketball talent wise, Simmons can have it, but we've saw in the playoffs and even in the regular season, there's a very passive version of Ben that happens quite often, where he's not as aggressive on defense.
Hack-a-Ben.
Yeah, but he can be very aggressive on offense, and that can be a very big advantage for the Nets. But clearly, seeing Simmons at the 5, I agree with Seth. I think Simmons is just too much of a diva to let that happen. He's got to have a ball in his hands. That's the only way he's going to be happy.
Yeah, definitely. And Rossi and Philly sports, I want to turn to you guys. Another question in terms of fit. Turning back to the Sixers a little bit, Drew has also mentioned, and Young Udai has mentioned about Thibault, Danny Green, and also losing Seth Curry. Drew kind of mentions the fact that we are losing a shooter on the outside, which could hurt us. And then it kind of comes down to, do you want to put Danny in there to have him? He can be kind of inconsistent at times. He's hot and cold. Or do you want to get Thibault in there for the defense, who has been shooting well, but also can be kind of hot and cold from 3? What are your thoughts, Rossi?
I'm a little bit unconventional. So honestly, if it was me, I'm just going with the hot hand. That's not super conventional. Otherwise, probably Thibault. Maybe that changes in the playoffs just because of Danny Green's experience. But I really do like what Thibault brings from a defensive standpoint. I think it's really important that, the Sixers kept him. I really think that, I do understand the reports that said, the Sixers might not do this trade if Thibault is involved. Because to me, Thibault was kind of the cornerstone of this trade in answering the question of whether this was a move for next year or this was a move for this year. If you keep Thibault, right, if you keep Maxey, if you keep these young guys, then this is a move that is a this year move. You are going for it this year. If you get rid of Thibault, if he's included in the deal, if you lose Maxey, if he's included in the deal, you probably have a couple holes that you can't necessarily fill on the buyout market. And while maybe it makes you a little bit more competitive this year, you're probably not getting really competitive until next year when you ink Harden. And originally the reports were that we did ink Harden for next year. Those reports were not true. We do not have him officially for next year. And that's probably just because, there's going to be a contract negotiation, which, the Sixers were not giving up Seth Curry and Andre Drummond and 2 first-round picks if they didn't have assurances from Harden that this was going to be more than just a quarter of a year rental. So that's kind of my thoughts on how this is all going to work.
Yeah, Robert, close us out here, man. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I kind of would agree with Nate because it's like, if you look at it, it's like the regular and the fact that if you look at the standings, like the statistical categories, Matisse Thybulle's in the top 5 of steals per game with 1.7 steals per game. So if we gave out, say, Matisse Thybulle, we lose that. And like Young Udai said, steals and deflections turn into transition buckets. Like that has been kind of one of our biggest momentums, that once Matisse is on the floor, like you can pretty much guarantee he's going to pick somebody's pocket. And when it comes to playoff time, I would not be surprised to see Danny Green there because like Rossi said, of his experience. But if they're going to have Matisse in the lineup in the playoffs, hey, I'm all for it because we need that defensive caliber in that starting 5 in the playoffs. Because even like Matisse, yeah, say what you want about this kid. I know he's getting better. I mean, you can see it in the way he shoots the basketball, and like you said, I mean. Danny Green and Matisse, they're both hot and cold, or as my friend Key in the building would say, he's got the Katy Perry syndrome. But yeah, so I think the Sixers really did a good job of retaining Matisse and Maxey. I wouldn't be surprised too if we give Harden a contract extension. I really would not be surprised because I think overall, I think he's a great fit here, and I don't care what anybody else says about it because that's their take, not mine.
Hey, love that. Gotta stick to your opinion no matter what. But Philly Sports Talk, we want to thank you so much for hopping in and being
Not
our
a problem.
honorary last caller of the night. We appreciate you, man. Thank you so much.
Hey, not a problem.
All right. We'll see you later, man.
I'll see
Thanks
you.
for joining us.
Peace.
Yeah, absolutely. So to close out today, we have a new special segment. It is called Guess the Player. Since we have this Harden news and we're talking a lot of Sixers, we are going to do a Sixers player. This is how it's going to work. So you can post questions in the live chat. We will put them up on the screen and we will answer them. The catch is that they have to be yes or no questions. We will answer the yes or no question so that you can get closer and closer to guessing who this Sixers player is, can be current or former. So you post those yes or no questions, we'll answer them, and you can make guesses as well. So an example of a question you could ask is, was this a process era Sixer? Okay, so we're going to start it off. So drop some of those questions in the chat. And the winner is going to be the person who guesses the Sixer that we have in mind first. We have already picked them out. So go ahead and ask some questions to try to narrow that down. And again, you can also try to guess in the chat who that player is. And if you get it, then you're the winner for the night. That's how we're going to close out. So go ahead and ask some of those questions. Before we get some of those up, and while we get some of those up, we're going to be talking a little bit about Doc Rivers. Look, in my opinion, with what is happening with the Sixers right now that they have gotten this, star player to put with Joel Embiid, I think that the onus is on Doc and the responsibility is on Doc. And if this team doesn't make it to the NBA Finals this year, there's not really anybody else to blame except the coach. And so I know that some of us have expressed concerns about Doc, and we're a little bit on edge about Doc, especially after some of the blown playoff leads, right? And so, look, I think that it's on him, and he might not be with the Sixers next year if the Sixers don't make a deep playoff run, because that's just how the NBA can be at times. So it looks like we've got some questions now, so we can go ahead and put some of those up if we would like.
We've got Philly Insider Podcast chiming in here with the question.
Okay.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah, so we are giving a hint right here by asking this question, and so I am looking at when this player played. And so, Hunter, is the question: have they played in the last 10 years, or have they played in the 2020s?
Up to you. You decide, Nate.
Okay. So this is how we'll do it. Have they played in the 2020s? No, meaning that they are a former Sixer, not a current. So any other questions that we can pull? Does he currently play for the team? No, he does not. No, he is not currently on the team.
Sorry.
So Robert says probably a power forward. No, not a power forward. And again, those are the type of questions that you want to ask. A center? No, it was not a center. Obviously, if we can get the position here, we can nail it down. It is not JoJo. We don't want to be that obvious. Sterner, good guess, but we're not going to try to be that obvious. No, it's not Jimmy Butler either. So go ahead and keep asking those questions in the chat to kind of narrow it down. But Seth, I'll go to you about Doc. Should Doc be fired at the end of this year if we don't make it to the NBA Finals?
I think there's a lot of pressure on him. I think a big part of this trade, one of the first things I thought about was, okay, if we get knocked out in the second round, whose fault is it going to be? I don't see him getting fired. So far as we win a first round playoff series, I don't know for a fact, but I think he can be inconsistent at times. I'm kind of 50-50 with Doc, but hopefully we won't be having this conversation come early summer, but I think he'll be with us next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a few guesses here. So let's put up some of these last few guesses that we have. No, it is not Hollis Thompson. It is not Tony Roten. That is a good guess,
That's a good
though.
one.
To go on.
Yeah, there are definitely some process Sixers. There are a lot of them who are some, and no, not a finals appearance to my knowledge. Yeah, not with the Sixers. And you know what? This is a really good guess because it's Ish Smith. And that's a really
Yeah.
good guess, Troy, because Ish Smith is a really, and Hunter had the Ish Smith shirt ready. It's Ish Smith, and that is not an easy guess because he only played for the Sixers he had 2 appearances. I'm seeing 2015 and then 2015-16 for the Sixers. He played for the Pelicans in between. So Ish Smith, that's a pretty incredible guess. And yes, the Hunter smirk gave it away. He could see that in the chat. That's a great guess right there. And Ish Smith is actually a current NBA player. He is with the Washington Wizards. It's unbelievable how many teams this guy has been on. He was an undrafted player. He started in 2010 with the Rockets. Then he was with the Rio Grande Valley Vipers. So he for a year, he was not in the NBA. Then in 2011, he played for the Grizzlies. He played for Golden State. He played for Orlando. He played for Milwaukee. He played for Phoenix. He played for Oklahoma City. He played for the Sixers in 2015. He played for the Pelicans in 2015, came back to join the process Sixers in 2015-16. He played for the Pistons from 2016 to 2019. He played for the Wizards from 2019 to 2021. This year, he played with the Hornets, and now he is back with the Wizards. So if you're going to talk about a journeyman, that is a true journeyman right there. But that's a great guess, Troy. So we are going to have that news segment just to pretty much close us out towards the end of all of our live shows every week. Sometimes it'll be a different figure. It'll be an Eagles player. Sometimes, Phillies guy. Maybe it'll be a broadcaster. Maybe a media personality. So we're going to do that segment as a new one. Troy, great guess. Good job. You are our winner tonight. And so just before we close out, Hunter and Dan, I'm going to ask you guys about Doc. Dan, what do you think about Doc? Do you think that he should be fired if the Sixers don't make it to the NBA Finals this year?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Seth. I mean, there's a lot of pressure on them, especially with the amount of time that they've spent, especially Morey spent on trying to get Harden here. I mean, the rumor mill for the past week and 2 weeks have just been pushing to get Harden. The amount of work that they put in to get a piece to go alongside Embiid, they're pushing the chips in. They didn't push them all in, which is good, but they're ready to go for it. And if Doc can't win with this lineup, it's going to be upsetting. And this is the type of lineup where if you lose with this lineup, there's a problem with the coaching. And I mean, I'm still kind of annoyed with the rotations. It's been a rough go with seeing some of these players get the amount of time that they do, and also
it's brutal. Yeah,
Tobias always running with the full bench lineup, and then we blow like a 20-point lead. Oh my goodness, it's phenomenal how it happens. It's really something else. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of pressure on Doc, and if we don't get there, I think if we get there, he's fine. We don't necessarily have to win it, but if we don't get there, it's a very big possibility that he's going to get fired.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Sterner kind of said, NBA Finals is a tough shot, but yeah, Sterner, absolutely. If we don't make it past the second round this year, Doc is a goner. He is a goner, especially with those stupid rotations and playing all those bench guys in the playoffs and just historically all the blown leads. I know that he won an NBA championship, but he did it with the Celtics with 3 Hall of Fame players. So, yeah, he might be gone. If the Sixers don't make the NBA Finals, he'll definitely be gone if they don't get past the second round. Hunter, are you concerned about Doc in the playoffs?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm waiting for – I dare him to throw out a Milton Korkmaz, Isaiah Joe Toby Bassey lineup in the playoffs. My goodness, I dare this guy to. I'll go on the court. I'll buy courtside tickets and go slap in the face if that happens.
Oh man.
But look, I'm kind of with Sterner on this. I think we can win it all this year. That's where I'm at. But I also, if he does get to the ECF, I think he is safe. That's kind of last year was kind of ECF or bust. Although, I think obviously we all convinced ourselves we were going to go to the finals, and I thought we had a good shot. And I'm not going to absolve Ben from blame here because I can't stand him. I despise him as much as the next person. But look, I mean, he's the one who kept Ben out there and didn't put him on the bench when they were playing Hack-Ben. He's the one who let Lou Williams get hot because Seth Curry was out there. And same thing with Kevin Huerter in Game 7. Left Seth Curry on him the entire game. Again, I know we lost Danny Green, and it was kind of tough after that, but still, I think at some point, if something's not working, you got to make a change, even if it's putting Korkmaz on Huerter or something else, something different, because Seth Curry was a liability in that game. And again, like you guys both mentioned, he is the one who has consistently put out 4 or 5 bench guys. Even with buyout options available, even if we add some guys, there is no reason this team should go past 8 deep in the playoffs. And that's kind of being generous. I mean, look, the Bucks were like, 6, 7 deep at most last year, and they won the NBA Finals. And that was, after they lost Dante DiVincenzo, I know, but still, that probably would have been 7 to 8 at most. So, yeah, Doc is absolutely still kind of on the hot seat. And in my opinion, this kind of puts him more on the hot seat because, like you guys all mentioned, this puts a lot more pressure on him moving forward.
It's not on the front office anymore.
Absolutely. They put him in a position to succeed. They have put players together that fit together on the basketball court, unlike the Simmons Embiid thing that I wanted to believe could work because of the talent and potential that was there with one of the players of those two, but it obviously did not work out. And now he's been given some complementary pieces and kind of has to figure out where to go with them.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens, but I think that we can say, we are so excited as Sixers fans. I think that ticket prices and the reaction of fans to this trade shows that the Sixers really didn't have a shot before they made this trade to win it this year. And Sterner with a score update there. Sixers are up in this game, in a game where Harden is not playing yet. And, it's on Doc. It's on Doc right now because you've got the pieces, you've got the big duo, you've got arguably the best starting lineup in the entire Eastern Conference. It's on Doc, and I think that Doc really is what's going to decide success or failure, obviously other than things like injury, right? If Harden or Embiid or both, go down, then it's a little bit of a different conversation there. But I think a lot of it's on Doc. A lot of the responsibility is on Doc, especially after kind of the blown leads that we saw last year. So I think a lot of the responsibility is on him. So as we pass the hour mark here, we just want to thank all of you guys for joining us live. It was really fun to do that segment. Troy H had a really good guess there. He guessed that Ish Smith was the player we had in mind. So we'll be rolling that back out next week as well. That was an elite guess right there. So we just want to thank you all for joining us. This has been Philly Insider Podcast. I'm Nathan Rossi. You had Seth, Dan, and Hunter joining you as well. Thanks for a great stream, everybody. Go Sixers. Have a good one.
Peace out.